Okay, so today we're going to be learning about tuples and sets. So let's just get started on that. Um okay. So let me share my screen. Okay. Okay. So yeah, today we're going to be learning about tuples and sets. And basically, a tuple is one single variable that can allow you to store multiple items. So before we talked about different types of data types like string and integer, and those could only hold one value, right? So like string could hold like one word or just one like set of quotation marks, and integers could only hold one number. But tuples and sets allow you to store multiple items in one variable, like this. So let's look at this example. In this case, the name of the tuple variable would be my tuple, and this would be the value of the tuple. And we can see that there are 3 items in the single tuple. And so we'll go over these other data types a little later, but one thing to remember about a tuple and sort of how it's different from other these different data types is that tuples are ordered and unchangeable. So when you create a tuple like this, you can't change the order. And tuples are also written with round brackets. So if we look at some other examples of other data types, we can see that some use like square brackets and some use curly brackets, but tuples use the round um, parenthesis brackets. And so let's look at this example. We can see that this is the variable name of the tuple. It's called this tuple, and it's equal to all these values. So this tuple is equal to apple, banana, and cherry. And so if we printed the tuple out, we would get the basically what's just in these parentheses, which is apple, banana, cherry. And so let's actually play around with these values a little bit. Let's do coding and Python is so remember that a tuple, we need to put the round brackets around the values, and each item is separated by a comma. So each item is a individual string, and they're all divided by a comma, and that's how you tell from one item to the next. And so if we printed out this tuple with these new values, we can see that the contents of this tuple is just what I wrote down here. And let's also do this with strings. So let's do like 12, 34, 8, 7, 916. And so even if we did this with numbers instead of like words or phrases, we can still see that when we print out the tuple, it's still going to print out whatever is inside the parentheses. And so tuples work with any data type, but you just need to remember that they store multiple items in one variable. And so similarly to how we learned about string variables, the items in a tuple are also indexed, which means that like the first item has an index number of 0 and the second item has an index number of 1 and so on. So let's look at this example right here. Since the first item in a tuple is going to be or is going to have an index number of 0 instead of 1, 12 is going to be the index number of 0, 34 has an index number of 1, 8 has an index number of 2, 7 has an index number of 3, and 916 has an index number of 4. And so remember that the very last item has 1 minus, or the very last index number is 1 less than the length of the tuple. So since this tuple has 5 items, this last item is going to have an index number of 4 because this starts from 0. And so what this goes into like an explanation of what it means when tuples are ordered. And that means that the items have a defined order and that the order cannot change. I feel like that is pretty straightforward. So if we have this as our tuple right here, this order cannot change. Yeah. Yeah, it basically means that the values in the tuple cannot change either since tuples are unchangeable. And that means that we can't add or remove items after the tuple has been created, and we can't change the values either. So if we already made this tuple here, we can't add new items to it, or we can't like remove items to it, or we can't like change the values of one. So let's say that I wanted to add like the number 1, you would not be able to do that like later in the code. So if you wanted to add like a new item, you would have to do it when you create the tuple. And you also can't remove items, and you also can't change the values later in the code. Okay. And so another thing to remember is that tuples can have the same value. And that means that um, if there was one item in the tuple, the same or an item with the same value can still exist later in the tuple. So for example, if we have this tuple right here, we can see that apple comes out twice. And we can also see that cherry comes out twice. And this is allowed in tuples, even though it might not be allowed in other data types. But we can see that when we print out the tuple, we are allowed to have 2 of the same value. So let's look at this with numbers as well. So if we do like 9, 87, 13, 9, 13, we can see that I repeated 9 and the number 13. And we can see that when we print out the tuple, we're allowed to have duplicate values or items with the same value. Okay. Also, let me know if you are running into any questions or anything, if you have any questions. Yeah. Um, so I I hope you guys remember that when we created strings, to get the length of the string, we used the len function. And that was like just the keyword len and then the set of parentheses. And you can also use this len function for tuples as well. So if we wanted to get the length of this tuple, we would just say in the print statement len, and then parentheses, and then the variable name of the tuple. And so since there are 3 values here, apple, banana, cherry, we can see that the length of 3 is printed out. And so this is kind of different from like strings in the sense that you're not counting each individual letter, but since this entire string is one item, since each string is one item, there's going to be 3 items in the tuple. And just here, I'll put a couple of comments here. Remember that this hashtag symbol is a comment, so you don't need to use it for your own code. So each item is separated by commas, and to get the length of the tuple, get length, you're just gonna put the len function and then in parentheses the tuple variable name. Okay. And so let's look at a couple more examples as well. Instead of strings, let's look at numbers one more time. 8, 18, 6, 24, 92. Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 different items in the tuple. So the length of the tuple is going to be 6. Since there are 6 different items in the tuple. So this is really important to note. If you want to create a tuple with only one item, you have to add a comma after the item. So if you created, okay, so let's talk a little bit about the difference in these two. In this one, in both of them, we can see that we have the same variable name, this tuple. But in this one, we can see that there is a comma after the item. We can see that after the word apple, there's a comma. But in this one, we can see that it's just the word apple and there's no comma. And if you were to get the data type of this first item, we can see that it is a tuple, while this, the data type of this is just a string. So you need to make sure that when you create a tuple with only one value, you want to add a comma to the end of it. And so this applies to numbers as well. So if you wanted to create, let's create 2 new examples actually. So let's create word tuple and number tuple. And so let's say I wanted to create a tuple with just one word. Let's say the word is coding. Then I would put in parentheses, since coding is a string, I would put coding. But since I want it to be a tuple, I would put a comma and then the rounded bracket. And let's say that since it's December, let's put 12. And if we just put the round bracket around it and didn't put a comma, this would actually just be an integer. So we need to put a comma after the 12 to make sure that it is classified as a tuple. Okay. We went over this as well and how tuples can be used with any data type. We went over like strings and integers, but you can also use them with Boolean or true false data types. Oh, another important thing to note is that you can mix and match these data types as well. So a tuple doesn't have to be just all string or all integers. You can have like a mix of strings and integers. So if we look at this example, we can see that this tuple actually has strings, integers, and Boolean all in one, and that is possible. So let's create one of our own as well. Let's put Python 12, false, 8, true. And so we can see that we have two string values, Python and computer, and two integer values, 12 and 8, and two Boolean values, false and true. And so these are all inside of one tuple, and that is still possible. Like it doesn't all have to be strings or integers. And so if we try to run this, we can see that when the tuple is printed out, it's just printed out as we wrote it here. Yeah, I'll repeat about tuples. So I'll just put it here. Okay. So when you're creating a tuple with only one item, let's call this word tuple. When you're creating a tuple with only one item, you're gonna want to make sure you put a comma after the one item. So let's say that the item we want to have is Python, right? If we just left this without the comma at the end, it would not be counted as a tuple. It would be counted as a string. So after the one item, after the word Python, you would put a comma to make sure that the computer recognizes that this variable is a tuple. And you would also do the same thing for tuples with numbers or Boolean as well. So okay, so let's do both. Boolean tuple. And so to be classified as a tuple, we would have to put the first item and then a comma. And you need to make sure to have the round bracket around that as well. So basically just like that. And so to sum it all up, tuples with only one item must have a comma after the first item. Does that kind of make sense? Does that make a little more sense? Okay, let me know if I need to repeat that. But I think it's okay. Okay, just in case I'll leave it there. Okay. 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 Sorry. Okay. So you can also get the data type of a tuple by using this type function. So since this tuple only has all strings, we only have apple, banana, cherry. We don't have any Boolean values or integer values. If we got the type of this tuple, it would just be a tuple. Wait, okay, I worded that a little weird. Okay, so this would be a tuple because there are multiple items being put into a single variable. So if we got the type of this variable right here, we can see that it would be a tuple. So let's kind of use this function to go back to the tuple with just one item. So let's create the same word tuple. Oops. And so let's say that we just put the one item without the comma at the end, and you did the type function, which is just the keyword type, and then in parentheses the name of the variable, word tuple. If you got this, you would be able to see that without the comma, the type of this tuple, the data type of this variable would just be a string. And so the same applies. And so let's see how it works with a comma. If we did put the comma after it, we can see that both of these variables would be considered tuples. And so let's say if we just use like 80 as an example, since we don't have the comma after the 80, this variable would be classified as an integer. And so if we put the comma after it, then we would be able to see that word tuple would just be a tuple with only one item. And so the important thing to note here is that you can get the data type of a variable by using the type, and then in here goes the variable name function. Yeah, that is all you need to know for the type function. Okay. And so okay. Okay. So this is similar to accessing tuples is similar to accessing like characters in a string, in the sense that you use square brackets. So let's look at this example. We can see that we have this tuple right here. It's just the ones we looked at before, apple, banana, and cherry. So it's a string tuple, and there are 3 different values. And so if we put the variable name here, and following the variable name, we put the index number in the square brackets, we can see that this index number is 1. And so remember that the first item has an index number of 0, and the second item has an index number of 1. So what this line is printing is just the second item of this tuple. And so the second item is banana, and that's why banana is printed out. So let's break this down a little bit. Important things to note for this, just like we always say, the first item has an index number of 0. And to get the item at a certain index number, you would put the variable name, and then in the square brackets, you would put the index. Okay. Can you guys hear me? Is it okay now? Okay. Can you guys hear me? I think you guys can. Yeah? Hello? Okay, good. Okay, good. Okay. So I think I left off on negative indexing. So let's do negative indexing. Okay. So basically, negative indexing means from start to the end. And so -1 is the last item, -2 is the second to last item, and so on. And remember how when we do just normal from left to right indexing, the first item has an index number of 0. So the first number on the left would have an sorry about that. So the first number on the left would have an index number of 0. Do you guys remember that? Well, that would not apply to negative indexing. So um, the first so negative indexing basically just um, means that we're giving index numbers from the right of the tuple to the left of the tuple. And so first index number from the right is -1. So cherry would have an index number of -1, banana would be -2, and apple would be -3. So the first index number from the right is -1. It's not 0. So cherry would have an index number of -1, banana would be -2, and apple would be -3. So let's say we got the item at index of -3 and we ran it. We would be able to get apple since this is -1, -2, and -3. Okay, and you can also get multiple items in a tuple by using a range of indexes. So a range of indexes just indicates a starting index number and an ending index number. And so the ending index number is not included in the range. So let's look at this example as well. So we have this pretty long tuple. Apple would have an index number of 0. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So the last index number is 6. And we can see that we're getting the range from an index number of 2 to 5, and 5 is not included. And so this basically means, let me write another comment. This range basically means that we are getting index number 2, 3, and 4. And so we are not including index number 5. And you would set this up by saying the variable name followed by the square brackets. But instead of just one number, we're starting with the starting index, putting a colon, and then the ending index plus 1. So the ending index plus 1, basically. And so if we looked at it at this specific tuple, this apple has the index number of 0, banana is 1, and cherry is 2. So we would start at 2, and we would go 2, 3, and 4, since the index number of 5 is not included. So cherry is 2, orange is 3, and kiwi is 4. And we can see that this is actually what is printed out. We are left with cherry, orange, and kiwi. Yeah, these are some important things to note as well. And if we change this number to, let's say, 1 and 3, let's think a little bit about what this would print out. So it would start at index number 1, and so this is 0, this is 0, and this is 1. So it would start at banana, and then it would go up to 3 minus 1, so 2. So it would go from index number 1 to index number 2, and that means that it would just print out banana cherry. So let's see if that is true and if that's what we get. So we were right. If we just use this range of indexes, we would get index number 1 and 2. And remember that 3 is not included. Okay. Hold on, give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay. So let's just do a little bit about sets, and let's go over first, like the difference between tuples and sets might be a little confusing at first. I was definitely confused at first. And so, one important thing to note about sets and how they're different from tuples is that remember how tuples use the rounded brackets? Sets are going to be using these curly brackets. That is one really main difference in tuples and sets. And another one is that a set is unordered, unchangeable, and unindexed. And so I found this image. It gives us like a good example of the difference between tuples and sets. And so we can see that tuples are not changeable, so you can't change the values of the items in a tuple after it is made, but in a set you can go back and change the values of the items in a set. And set items are also not ordered, which means that they can't be referred to by an index or key, so they don't really have an index number, and every time you print them out, they're going to appear in a different order, basically. So tuples, every time it's going to print out the same way because they're set index numbers, but sets are not ordered, and that basically means they can appear in any random way. And another thing to note is that tuples allow duplicate values. So two tuple items may have the same value, like how we saw with like the numbers we did before, like 9 and 13. We were able to have two 9s and two 13s in the same tuple, but that is not allowed in sets. And that means that if we have two of the same number, when we actually print it out, there's only going to be one, since it does not allow duplicate values. We'll go over this in a little more depth right now, actually. So sets are unordered, unchangeable, and unindexed. And so remember that we use curly brackets with sets, curly brackets, and those look like this, curly brackets. So since sets are unordered, you cannot be sure in which the items will appear. So every time we print out the same set, even if we print out the same set, it might appear in a random order each time. Yeah, and that is what we talked about here. And they also can't be referred to by an index number. So since the order of the set is changing each time, the value at a certain index number is also going to change each time. Okay, another important thing to note as well is that set items are unchangeable, meaning that we can't change the items after the set has been created. So if we created a set, we can't go back and change the value of the items after it has already been made. And so even though you can't change the values or change the items, you can still remove and add items. Remember in tuples that we couldn't even remove or add new items. We are allowed to remove and add new items in sets. And so let's talk a little bit more about like these duplicates. We can see that even though we have two instances of the item apple, we can see that it is only printed out once in the final statement. And we can also use this as a good opportunity to talk about how sets are unordered. And so even though it's written this way when we create it, we can see that it's in a different order when we actually print it out. And there's only one apple. So even if even 10 of the same even if 10 of the same items had the same value, only one of them would exist. And so they're unordered, so the order is going to be random each time. And so this time it's apple, cherry, banana. But if we run it again, we can see that the order of the tuple is going to be different. Oh, actually, it didn't work this time, never mind. Okay. Oh my god, okay. Okay, we can see that this time the order of the tuple changed. Before it used to be apple, cherry, banana, but we can see that since the tuple is unordered, the order is going to be banana, apple, cherry. Yes. Oops. Okay. We can also use the same len function that we used for the strings and tuples in sets as well. At the length of a set, you would pretty much do the same thing. You would put the len keyword, and then in parentheses, you would put the name of the set variable. You would put the name of the set variable. So if we looked at this example, we can see that the length of the set would actually be 3. So this is where it might get a little confusing because we wrote down 4 different values, but it only comes out as 3, right? And so this is because length is 3 because there is a duplicate value. And so since there are duplicate values, one of them is basically going to be erased. And so that is why the length of the set would be 3. I think this one is pretty straightforward because we already went over the length function in strings and tuples, but you just need to keep in mind that the length of the function is basically taken after duplicates are removed. So let's do so let's see, we added 2 new items that both said banana. The length of the function would still be 3 because there are only 3 unique values. That's a good way to put it. So length is the number of unique values. So this is what's really important. So length is the number of unique values. And since the only unique values in this set is apple, banana, and cherry, the length of the set would just be 3. Okay, we kind of, a lot of the functions that we use in tuples can also be applied to sets, like the different data types and how we can mix and match the strings, booleans, and integers all into one different set, as well as the type function. Yeah. It would also be the same for, actually, it would not be the same for accessing items. Remember that sets are unordered, which means that they don't have a specific index number. So instead, you can just loop through the set items. And so let's do this, and I think I'll finish there. Okay, so we have this tuple right here. It has apple, banana, and cherry. And we went over for loops in the strings portion as well. And so remember that these 2 keywords are necessary. So we put 4, and then the X basically represents these individual items in the set. And so the variable name of each set item then you would put in, and then you would put the set variable name followed by a colon. And remember that you need the indents, and then print, and in the round brackets, you would put the variable name of each set item. And so how this would work is that this X variable represents each item in this set. And each time you would just this print X just means that it is printing out each item in this set. And so remember that the order of the set changes. So each time we run this code, we can see that the order in which the set items show up is actually different. So I don't know if you caught it last time, but when we first ran the code, it was banana, cherry, apple. But we can see that when we run it again, since the order is random, this time it came out as apple, cherry, banana. So let's do one final comparison, review of the difference between tuples and sets. So sets do not allow duplicate values. So you cannot have more than one of the same value. And that means that every single item in the set is a unique value. Meanwhile, in tuples, you are allowed to have multiple items with the same value. So if you wanted 5 items that all said apples, you would be allowed to do that in tuples, but not in sets. Also, it's important to note that sets are unordered, which means that they don't have index numbers and that each time you print it out, it would be in a different random order. While in tuples are ordered, which means that they have index numbers and they appear the same way as they're written each time. Okay, I hope that made a little bit more sense. If you have any questions, just let me know and I'll answer them right away. But okay. I think Aiden, I think you can go now. You can start your thing.
Okay, hold on, let me share my screen. Can you see it? Hello? Okay. So Python functions, basically, a function is like a way to have a bunch of different it basically a way to have a specific set of instructions in just one line. So for example, here we see it has we create a function, sorry, by using the def keyword. So you put def, then the name of your function, then parentheses, then any parameters, or yeah, and then you put your set in a comma, and then you put your set of instructions on the next line. So here, let's do caps lock. Let's do def, the keyword, and let's do a function like just my function, right? And then I'll explain what the parentheses do a little later, but for now, just there's nothing in there. And then you put your comma, and make sure you indent. and then you put whatever set of instructions you want in this area. So for now, we'll just put just a regular print statement, print hello world, I guess. And then and basically that little set of instructions will be like with your my function over here. So basically every time you call my function, uh you'll it'll run this set of instructions, and yeah, basically do that. So in order to call a function, basically you just need the function name, and then just a set of parentheses. So here we'll just put like they have in there, my function with some parentheses. So if we run this code, we'll be able to see it runs the print function, because that's what we had in our my function. So when we're calling my function, it does this set of instructions, in which case printing hello world, and it outputs that. Okay, arguments. So basically every function can have something put into them in here. So say that we wanted to um say that we wanted to put any adjective here. We can call it, so here we have, oh uh here they have the thing f name, so I guess we'll just use that instead. So we'll put f name in here, and then here it just wants to print f name and something else, so you already know how to do that. So let's just put uh let's just do that. So now whatever you whenever you're calling a function, you can put in an argument, which is this f name, and whatever you put in the my function will be put in as f name. So for example, if we wanted, so my first name is Aiden. So if we put in Aiden as our f name, and then we run it. Oh, what? Did I do something wrong? Oh, sorry. Yeah, these need to be in quotations because it's a string. Sorry. See, and it'll output hi and first name, in our case Aiden. So it'll say hi Aiden. Let's try something a little bit different. Let's say we wanted to say hi to someone named Charles. So we would put in the name over here, Charles, and it'll get put into our f name. And if we run it, it should say, there you go, hi Charles. Essentially, you can think of this kind of like a variable. Whatever you put inside the parentheses here will get assigned to a temporary variable named, in our case, f name. And whenever the variable is called in any set of instructions in our my function, it'll put this in place of this. You may have heard me call it parameters earlier, but parameters and arguments are basically the same thing. Okay, so now we'll look at if you want multiple arguments. It's not that much different. So however many arguments you want, you'll have your first argument separated by a comma with your other argument. In this case, let's do L name for last name. So here now we have two arguments in our my function. And if we wanted to, let's say we want to say hi to our person, but with their full name instead. So in this case, we will put hi as a string and then f name plus l name. So if we run this, there should be an error. Yeah, there will be an error, and that's because we haven't called a second variable or we haven't called a second thing in our my function. So for example, we have our first name Charles, but we don't have a last name, so it doesn't know what to do with last name, so it just gives us an error. In order to put another variable in there, we separate it with a comma, like in our my function, and we put in another parameter. So let's say their last name is um, Park. We can put in Park here, and this will get assigned to our last name, and this will get assigned to our first name. So if we run this, it says, oh wait, there should be a space here. Yeah. Well, if we don't put a space here, it'll just say that it will combine the two. So yeah, it says hi Charles Park. So like we did with first name, the park gets assigned to the L name, and then it gets called in here and really anywhere else that's called. If we switch these, you'll see that the names switch because uh it gets assigned to the first one. So whatever you call first whatever you call first gets assigned to your first variable or first parameter. What you have in your second gets assigned to your second parameter, and so on. So if we were to add more and more, it would get assigned to them respectively. Okay. Arbitrary argument. So basically, let's say uh, you have a let's say you want like or here okay sorry here they want a certain number of kids, but they don't know how many kids that they want. So um so here they call specifically three, but they don't know that they're going to have three kids in our my function whenever my function is called. So whenever that happens, we can put an asterisk in front of the parameter name to show that there can be any number of arguments in our my function. So here, instead of having this, let's just do the same thing as them. We have asterisks and then kids. So here we can just print. Let's just go with kids. We print kids here, and here we can give however many parameters we want to put in, and it'll print them over here. So let's say we want uh, Amelia, and then let's say we have Bob, and then we have Charles. Make sure you separate with them with a comma as well. So here, if we run this, we'll see Amelia, Bob, and Charles. And notice that they're in parentheses because whenever you use an arbitrary argument with an asterisk, it'll get saved into a tuple. And remember, tuples are the ones that have an index, are ordered, and allow for duplicates. So if we were to have another Charles here, it should also have another Charles in the see. There's two Charles, one Amelia, and one Bob. Um, okay, so keyword arguments. Let's say for some reason that you wanted. So let's go back to our f name and our l name example. Oops. Okay. So let's say we want to assign. Let's just go with my name this time. So my we want to assign Aiden, and we also want to assign Park. Um, so if we wanted to instead have it like this, but instead flip them, we could make them be assigned to very specific parameters. So for example, if we wanted this to be uh to be put in our last name, we could put L name is equal to, and it'll go to this. And then let's say we wanted to put Park in our first name, so we would go f name is equal to Park. So if we run it, it'll go it'll switch the two, because we specifically assigned Aiden to L name and Park to F name instead of how it usually would be if we hadn't put those in. If we were to put like if we were to put another like uh thing here, so let's go with like middle name, and let's say we wanted to put our middle name at the end first. Then we could have middle name. Middle name is assigned to like Bob. So if we run this, oh what? Oh, because we haven't put M name in anywhere in here, our middle name. Um, yeah, so our first name will be Park, our middle name will be Bob, and our last name will be Aiden. Okay. Um, arbitrary keyword arguments. So basically, if you have, so basically this is combining both the arbitrary arguments and the keyword arguments that we just talked about. So basically, if you want a certain number of keyword arguments, but you don't, yeah, if you want a certain amount of keyword arguments, but you don't know how many keyword arguments there are going to be, you can put a double asterisk and then put in, I mean, we'll just go with our last arbitrary argument. We'll go with kids. So if we want to print kids here, and then we can put in our parameters here. So, uh, okay. So if we wanted to, like, let's say we use our f names and l names like they do in the example there, we can have f name is equal to Charles, and then we could have our, oh, sorry, Charles, and we can have our l name equal to, oh, oh, sorry, Park. So now our f name and our l name will be will be Charles and Park, but as you can see, we don't have f name in here. So what we need to do is like this f name and l name will be saved inside of kids. So you'll need to call that as an index in here. I think this should work. What did I do wrong? Oh, sorry. Yeah, these need to be in quotations as well. Yeah, okay. So we get Charles in here because we assigned Charles to our f name, and we called f name in here. This syntax should look a little. Wait, actually, no, it shouldn't because we haven't gone over dictionaries yet. This gets saved into a dictionary. I'm not 100% sure if we've learned that yet, but yeah, just know that this gets saved into a dictionary, and you can call f name from this argument. Okay, default parameter value. So basically, if we have, say, like, if we have multiple functions that, and some of them may not end up having a parameter value inside of them, even if we need a parameter. So, for example, we have f name, but then it's possible that, I mean, maybe like you don't know the first name, or like you just forgot to put something in. You can assign a default variable or a default value to each of your parameters so that if there is a function with no parameter, it defaults and puts in this parameter, this value for the parameter instead. So if we put the default parameter for f name as Charles, and so if we have a my function here, and let's just to see the difference, let's put a my function of Aiden. So if you run this, oh wait, sorry, I forgot to change the print statement. You'll see that the one with it without any parameter will get the default parameter of Charles. And if they do have a parameter inside, that will overwrite this default and then turn into whatever's in the parameter. So if we were to change this to say like Bob, the first one should change to Bob, and the second one shouldn't. Should stay the same. So yeah, Bob and then Aiden. Since this one has no value, it goes to Bob. This one has a value, so it stays with Aiden. Um, you can send you can send like any data type for the argument to a function. So for example, a list, like a string, really anything. So if you wanted to put like, let's put a list here. Hold on, what? Oh, okay, yeah, sorry. So we have our let's define our function as food, and we can just put a regular for loop, and yeah, you just print x. So we have this in our set of instructions for any parameter of food. So let's say we have a list of uh, vegetables. Um, we can throw in our list, say, I guess, a bunch of vegetables. So like carrot, potato, and celery. So we have our list here, and in our my function, we can call vegetables as our parameter for food. So if we throw in vegetables in our my function, this should run this. So for every x in vegetables, oh what? What did I do? What? Well, I'm sorry. I think something's wrong. Um. Oh, is it an indentation error? Oh, sorry. Wait, no, that should be right though. It's not like this. Hmm. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. This should be working. It should be printing all of these three. Apparently there's an inconsistent use of spaces and tabs. Yeah, what it should be doing is just printing all of these three as if it were a set. So it would look like this and just like print out these three. I don't know what's wrong. I guess we could just move on for now. Okay, next we'll look at some return values. So if we want to like have our function return a value but not necessarily print our value in our output, we can use the return function or just return. So if we have a parameter in here of just like x, and you can return we can return x, and what that will do is every time that we call the function, it'll just return x. So if we want to oh geez, if we want to print and call main function here and put x as our parameter, when we run this, it'll return. Oh, sorry. Wait, this needs to be in quotations. It'll return just x because what we put in x as a parameter here, and then when we call my function with a parameter of x, it'll return just x. So it'll just print x. If we throw in something different here, like hello, it will print hello because we put hello in x, and all it will do is return x, and it will, whenever we call this function with the hello as our parameter, it'll return hello, and the print function will basically be printing hello because that's what the my function returned. We can also change our return to something such as like if we wanted to add something here, we could throw in world. And now what it will do, it will add world at the end of our hello. So basically, we have our hello here, and it gets put into X, and then this X is basically replaced with this hello. So it's adding on world to hello, and it returns hello world in this area. And what print will do, will just print hello world. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. So let's say you wanted to, for some reason, any reason really, you wanted to have a function with nothing at all. If you were to just run this, you would get an error because there's nothing in your function. Therefore, there's not really much to do. It'll especially be an error if you call my function and then you have nothing in it. This will be even more of an error because there's nothing in the set of instructions to do, so it can't really do much. So if for some reason you wanted to have an empty function, you could put in the keyword pass, and like what it says it will do, it will pass this whole function and just not do anything with it. So here, okay, well there shouldn't be, it won't output anything because, yeah, it won't output anything because you wanted to, it just passed the function and it didn't do anything with the function. Also because we have no print statements. Okay. Next we'll go over recursion, which is basically calling a function inside of itself. So, okay. So if we have our thing, my function, and we put in a value x, and then let's say we have uh yeah, we have if, if x is like less than 0, then it will then we can like put whatever we want in our if. So let's, in this case, we're using recursion, so we can call our function inside of this function. So we just have my function, oops, sorry, my function, and just x minus 1. Um, and wait, what? Yeah, let's say we just wanted to like multiply this by, or sorry, not multiply, add x. Oh yeah, sorry. We have to assign this to a thing. So let's just put that as like y is equal to. And then yeah, we can print our y. Yeah, there you go. We can also put in like an else, and just if it's, if it is, oh sorry, this, so if this is greater than 0, if x is greater than 0, or sorry, is not greater than 0, then it will run what's in here. So we can just return 0. Oh wait, what? Oh, sorry. No, we can assign this to a variable and return that variable. There's not really much of a difference, but yeah. So here, if we just, oops, if we just print, print my function. Wait, what? Oh, sorry. What? We just have my function, right? And we throw in like a number 4. Oh, oh no, it's not this again. Inconsistent use of tabs and spaces. What did I do? Uh-oh. Okay. Sorry, I'm just gonna copy this one because that's what we had anyways, so we'll just throw that in there. Um, I mean this will just like throw in our we'll throw in, so we assign 6 to k, or k to 6, and since it's greater than 0, it will add 6 to this if this was 5. So basically it calls this function, so it puts in 6 minus 1, which would be 5, into our k. Since 5 is greater than 0, it puts in our result as 5 plus 5 plus our function again, which would be 5 minus 1, and it just keeps going on and on until it gets to 0. And since 0 is not greater than 0, it'll put the result as 0 and then return the result, and it will throw in 0 over here. So the second to last recursion of here would end up being 1, because that's the last integer that's greater than 0, and it will add 1 to our function. If it was 0, which we know is 0, it would return 0, and so it just becomes 1 plus 0, and it prints 1 because that's what we get as a result. And over here we have 1, and then it goes on to the next one. So it goes on to when we had 2, it would add 2 to this, which is when we had 1, which we already know is 1. So it adds 2 to 1, and we get 3, and then it prints 3. It keeps going all the way back up to the top level, which is 6. Does anyone have any questions? I feel like I feel like this is kind of a hard topic, and I feel like I kind of did it badly. I explained it badly. So if anyone has any questions, you can ask. Okay. I guess if nobody has any questions, we can move on to the next part. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, don't be afraid to like speak up, because I feel like I explained that horribly. Okay, so let's do some exercises, I guess. Um, if we wanted to create a function with my function that has this instructions, what would we put inside of here, inside of our this little area? Um, Okay, it doesn't look like anyone's answering, so I'll just say it. So here we would have, remember our keyword of def it to call it, like, make it a function, and we would have to put we put the name of the function next, so it's my function, and then we put parentheses. So you use our keyword def, and then you name it with parentheses. Oops. Okay. Here we want to execute my function. So we have my function already defined here. So how do you guys think that we would, like, call my function over here if we wanted to run that set of instructions? Okay, I see some answers in the chat. So guys are saying my function with parentheses. Oh, sorry, my function with parentheses, and that's correct. Good job. Okay, so here we want so here we have a function with two parameters, and we only want to print the first parameter. So in our case, we want to print just this parameter. What do you think would be put inside of here, inside of our print function? Okay, f name is correct. Yep. Okay. So we have a function here, my function, with a parameter of x, and whatever we get for x, we want the function, whenever it's called, to return x plus. We want to return the value of x plus 5. So how would we do that? Okay, so I see return x plus 5. One thing to make sure is that make sure that you have make sure that these are spaced out, because return x, if you just put return x plus 5 with no spaces, it's going to end up being going to end up being an error, because it's going to say that return x plus 5 is in a function. So yeah, just make sure you're spacing them. Okay. So this is a function where you have an arbitrary amount of arguments, and you don't know how many arguments are going to be passed in when we are calling the variable, or sorry, when you're calling the function. So what prefix would be put in front of kids to make sure that we have to make sure that it doesn't, like, give an error. Yeah. Okay. Nice. Yeah. You would put an asterisk in front to make sure that, they're for arbitrary arguments. Now this time it's the exact same thing, except we need a number of keyword arguments as opposed to regular arbitrary arguments. So what would you put instead of just asterisk here? Okay, nice. You put two asterisks here to whenever you have a certain amount of arbitrary amount of keyword arguments. Okay, nice. hold on a second. Okay. Um, let's do some coding practices. Okay. So here we want to make a function so that whatever string name that we put in here into our parameter will return um just hello that. So I'll give you like 3 or 4 minutes to do this, and after that I'll show you the answer. And of course, ask if you have any questions. Oh yeah, sorry. Everybody, you guys should make a codingbat.com account at codingbat.com, all one word. Yeah, just it'll help a lot when we're doing these exercises. Okay, I think that's been about 3 minutes. I'll tell you guys the answer now. Okay, so okay, well, let's do it in here. Um, so basically, we want to have a function called hello name that gives whatever parameter we put in it, we it returns hello plus whatever we have here. So, or whatever our parameter was, sorry. So first what we do is we make the function. So remember, use the def keyword. So hello name, this was called. And let's put our parameter's name as name. So now we can put our set of instructions inside of here. So what we would do here is like we need to basically for whatever name that we get, we need to attach the string hello before it. So we put our print function and we put the string hello, and put a space, and we put our name here. So if we were to put a string of Bob, we would get hello Bob. And also, if you want, you can put an exclamation mark. Kind of nice. So you can see if we were to call the function here, hello name, oops, and like it says, we have Bob here. So let's say we want to put in Bob as our name. It returns hello Bob. Let's look at the second example here. They have Alice. So if we were to put in Alice in our function, it will return hello Alice. And let's just put an X here because that's what they had for the third example. And it says hello X. So yeah, as you can see, it's just hello plus your name plus an exclamation mark if you want. An exclamation mark isn't really necessary. Anybody have any questions? Oh, is that how you do it? Okay, hold on. Okay, sorry, I didn't know this was how you do it, so I'll just quickly move up all of our things here. Okay. So yeah, as you can see, hello, name, exclamation mark. Everybody good with that? Okay, I'll move on to the next one. Make ABBA. So here we want to have two string. We want to have two strings, and then return the result of an ABBA pattern. So A B B A, and it says hi, bye, hi. So yeah, I'll give you like we're running out of time a little bit. I'll give you like 2 minutes for 1 minute for this one. So basically until 5:56, or sorry, not 10:56. What am I saying? Or just 56 in whatever time it is. Okay. So here, yeah, it's been about a minute. So here we have two parameters A and B. So basically, what we do here is return, since that's what we need to do. And we would return, I think it's A plus B plus B plus A. Yeah. So as you can see, we just put in what was in our A as over here, and then what was in our B over here, and then B, and then A. Okay. Let's do maybe one more exercise. Okay. Um. Okay. So basically, what we want is like we want basically our first parameter to be in these greater than less than signs, and surround whatever our second parameter is. So I'll give you like until like a minute or so to do this one. Sorry, we're kind of running out of time. That's why we have so little time. Okay, so it's been a bit about a minute or a bit. So here, what we would do is basically we have our tag and our word, and we want to return a value of basically a big giant string. So these are always going to be the same. So we just want that, and um, we add our tag, because that, well, whatever we want on the first parameter gets put inside of these brackets or these greater less than signs. And so basically this means that we're surrounding these, or surrounding our tag with these. And then we put our word inside of here. And then we finish it off with just the same thing, except this time we have the slash here, because all of these have a slash on the second one. And then our tag again. And then this one. That should work. Yeah. So basically we're putting this, which is always here, then our tag over here, then putting the other sign here, then our word in the middle, and then basically the same thing, except we have a slash on the first one, then our tag, and then our little or the thing that ends it over here. I think that's about all the time that we have today. So yeah. Um Yeah. Bye. I guess. You're free to leave if you want. Today we're done. So, yeah. See you guys. See you guys tomorrow. Bye.